Welcome back, climbers, to another episode of Climbing Mount CMC. I'm your host, Bobby Guerra, joined by co-host Kaylee Floyd. Say hello, Kaylee.
Hello.
And we have special, awesome, incredible guest appearance by Adam Evans. So today we're going to be talking about organizational defined variables.
Mm,
Now, a lot of times people shorthand it as ODVs. The Department of War also has what are called ODPs,
mhm.
organizational defined parameters. So we're going to create a little bit of a distinction, not because we want to just have two different hills and fight on passionately, but
Yeah,
we're
we just
just
don't wanna
really,
confuse you all either, but
yeah, just because there's not enough acronyms, let's go ahead and do it that way. The context that we're taking for when we refer to ODVs is just things that are in our wheelhouse as a managed service provider, as an implementer, that we feel needs to have variableness to it so that the clients that we're working with when they go through their implementation, they can have some say about how they want their container to be built.
Mhm.
So the reason why me and Kaylee and Adam are kind of creating the distinction between ODVs and ODPs is just so that we can help you kind of understand we're not talking about what the Department of War has already defined. They already created the list of what those are, and they filled out Rev 3. So in case
Right.
you're catching up to speed, 800 alpha, which is what CMMC is based on, the Rev 3 of it has these variables in it. We're not talking about those. We're
Mhm.
talking about from the implementer's perspective. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And we're not going to spend a ton of time on it, but I think it is something that a lot of organizations get wrong
Mhm.
from my perspective. And we'll just talk a little bit about how that can kind of go off the wheels. So first off, Kaylee, I want to throw out to you first, and then I want to get to some other perspectives from you, Adam. But so when you're dealing with organizational defined values, where do you see MSPs? Because you've been out there talking, and you a lot of times you'll speak at peer groups and things like that and conferences. Like, where do you see people kind of tend to go off the rails when they're talking about organizational defined values,
Mm,
and where do they just kind of go off the rails around those?
mhm. Well, I feel like there's a few different places where it's easy to underestimate what it's like to be a scalable service provider in this space. Um, One, I think, big one that stands out to me is tools, because when you are a service provider, you have people that work for you that do these tasks on a day-to-day basis. You cannot just assume that your engineers or technicians can just go into whoever's company, whoever's contractor that you just onboarded
Okay.
and just know all of the tools
So
and
you're
just be
saying
able
that,
to
like, make
adapt.
the tools themselves a variable and you can just interchange whatever you like, however
Yes,
you
like
want.
I fear that I see a lot of people making that like a variable that you can just change. Like it just depends on, what type of system you're in and who you're managing. And that I just can't comprehend personally
Right.
after working with our team internally on how to navigate these tools and training on them. It's just I don't know who would want to work for a company that promised that you could just magically, learn every single client brand new as they came in. So, in my opinion, one of the first things that I think about is like how people really underestimate tools and make that a variable. The other thing that I can think of too is sometimes it's really just the stringency. Is that the word I'm thinking
Yeah.
of?
We'll go
Of
with that.
it. And what I mean by that is they box themselves in so much because maybe they get a little overhype about compliance and security, and they put all of these defined, variables that they're like, "Oh, like, we can say, yeah, if you guys want us to come in there every day, like once a day and audit your users to make sure that we have the right amount user count, then that's fine. Whatever you want to put in there." And then you're kind of like, well, if you're doing this for 20 companies and you have to go into all of these users on a day-to-day basis, if they request that as their variable, that's a lot for a managed service provider or a technician, to do on a
Right. And
regular
it doesn't
basis.
necessarily mean that how often as much as it is trying to make sure you're accurate with how often you said,
The
right?
accuracy, yeah, to
Yeah.
be able to do that accurately all that like those many times and and assume that your technicians and your engineers are doing that correctly every single time to prepare for even like an assessment or an internal assessment or audit, that is really unrealistic. So I feel like those are the first things that I think of, that some people, again, if you're looking at CMMC as an onion, they're looking at it surface level, and you start to peel off those layers and they realize, crap, I have signed myself up for way too many things, you know?
And it's sinister. You can really get yourself in that boiling water.
Yeah.
So Adam, like, I think what Kaylee said is so valuable, but it would fall to your shoulders as someone that is, as our compliance officer who's having to write and work with those policies. How difficult is it to just be, like Kaylee's saying, to write policies like that?
It requires a special way of thinking through things because when we look at our client base, we've got a whole bunch of wonderful clients across different sections of the CMMC ecosystem, from manufacturers to developers to just people who assist with other stuff. Every organization is unique in its own way, and we have to come and bring not only, IT help desk solutions, security services, and compliance services, but those have to meet the needs of each of those companies.
Yeah.
Right.
And one of the common rules when it comes to information security is productivity always wins. So I can develop the most secure system. You cannot get CUI out of it in any way, shape, or form, but that user needs to share stuff in email, and I say, nope, you can't do that. You know exactly what they're going to do? They're going to reach over, they're going to pick up this guy, they're going to take a picture of it, and then send it, and now I've got a security incident in my hands. So I have to be able to customize and tailor to that, because their users are smart. They'll figure out their ways. I'd love to be able to say that I can impose all my technology standards in every company, but I can't do that. I'd love to write a policy that says the username will be first name dot last name at company.com. Okay, but I just onboarded a client whose username schema is first initial last name at company.com. Am I going to tell that client, print new business cards, do everything to just change this because I said so? They're going to laugh at me and just say, nope, we're done.
So I think what you're saying is there has to be a certain level of flexibility, but also on the other side of the coin that Kaylee's saying is, if you go to the extreme of flexibility, like just insert tool here, how can you meet controls when you create a variable around and you don't, like, I don't see how you could, like, you'd have to pick Defender or Sentinel-1 or whatever your AV that you're going to use. You're going to have to lock in just even to the test procedures. And if you start thinking that you can have that high a level of an organizational defined value, that's pretty darn hard. I've never seen anyone be able to pull that off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is completely to that point. Is, again, Sentinel-1, CrowdStrike, Defender, they're all great. Cool. What happens when crap hits the fan and I've got a security incident that's reportable to the DoD or DOW? I've got to have my audit logs going to it. I've got to have my procedures written down and everything. And now I've got to write it across Defender, Sentinel-1, and CrowdStrike. Bobby, if you ask me to do that, hi guys, I'm available. But no, you have to do that to have sanity, because the depth that CMMC can get, and from our own assessment of experience, some assessors love to drill deeper and deeper and deeper into these technology solutions, looking for a finding. And if you aren't able to combat that with, here's the KB, here's the setting, here's how we know this works. Because remember, testing is a valid assessment procedure. If you aren't ready for that, you've got to stand on be able to fight. But also keep in mind, stuff breaks all the time. You have that one Defender setting that's causing a problem with a program and that user needs it to work. Your people need to know how to troubleshoot that and solve it, because if you can't fix the problems with the computers, the people are going to find somebody else to fix them for them.
Right.
And the reality from the MSPs is our clients don't talk to me as often as they talk to my help desk. Because I'm off doing stuff for other clients, but stuff inevitably will break. Even the most perfect environments will have a problem somewhere, or a user just has a question. The first person they talk to, help desk, all the time. They're not calling me, they're not calling you, they're not calling Bobby. So help desk needs to be prepared for that. And again, standardization across that board really helps that, but still finding the right ways where you can be flexible with those clients makes a world of difference. And at the end of the day, when we look at the policy side of stuff, that is what scoping and tailoring means. Keep in mind, you have all the tailoring criteria built into 800-171. Like, I'm looking just in this whole process. If I go, because I still have it pulled up from our last recording, you've got Appendix C in Rev 3. Tailoring criteria. So they don't expect you just to throw the entire thing at there and say, yep, it's everything or it's all or nothing. It's no, you start the process. And just like, you go to buy a new suit or a new dress, if you want to make sure you've got a good fit for it. So you take it to the tailor. They, button up the seams, make sure it looks good on you. It's the same thing for the policies. You've got to be flexible in the right stuff. Organizations will never operate in the same perfect way that NIST thinks they will.
So let's talk a little bit about that. The challenge that you are looking down the barrel of as an implementer for an organization, would be trying to walk that balance. The balance of providing flexibility, but at the same time creating the structure that you can efficiently move the client through the process. That implies a pre-built homework. You've done your due diligence before the client walks in the door, that you're ready to have that discussion earnestly and not learn on their dime. What do I mean by that? What I mean is you've got to have a system that has some of that flexibility built into it, however you feel it needs to be, so that you can move them through that path efficiently. If you have no pen on paper, right? And you just say, let's sit down and we're going to customize it together. You literally are going to be building every letter, every word, every sentence, every control, every assessment objective. It's all custom at that point as you're sort of going through. And I feel like organizations, if you're starting to work with implementers, you really need to understand where that implementer is in that equation.
So true.
Where are they in that process for them in their journey as they're helping step into the DIB space to support it? If they don't have their stuff together to help make clients move efficiently through the process, they will doom you.
Yes.
They will be the millstone around your neck that will be thrown overboard, and you're going to go 30,000 leagues under the sea. And that's not where you want to be when you're going to an assessment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like the comment. It really brings up one point that one of our team members made after participating in the CCP class that you taught with some of our partners recently. I asked how it went, and he literally just said, I now understand why your answer to every CMMC question is it depends.
Right.
And what that means from a client going through this journey and working with an implementer is the companies we work with always have a question. What we as an implementer need to be able to do is provide appropriate guidance and answers to that, but we have to think of it from our perspective of, am I building operational or technical debt that my team has to pay for? If they say, I want it this way, and I say, sure, no problem, did I just hand it to a service desk engineer that now says, you told me I have to do what now? Or did I dig a deeper hole for myself for like regular policy reviews or whatever? So I have to think with that in mind while still providing the relevant guidance to the client. But I think the key secret there is playing to everyone's strengths. When I look at this process and build this for myself, I know what my team is capable of. I know what I'm capable of. I know what we can do. So if it's technology related, security compliance related, cool, my wheelhouse. Dibs, it's mine. Hiring, firing, and publication procedures for marketing and HR sounds like it's not my wheelhouse. But what I can do is take the core requirements from the assessment, our experience that we've built over the assessments we've gone through and what other organizations are doing while still maintaining confidentiality, and say, this is what we see in an assessment. This is your requirement. These are some ideas to help you. Here's what we can do to start you out with. Let's talk about how we can make it your own. But the key thing is, whatever you do, we're writing it down. You have to keep the evidence of it, and we're going to check it because an assessor definitely will.
Yeah. I want to kind of close out in this topic and really kind of go through, because we just sort of covered, I think, really organizational defined values. They can be very sinister, like what you were just talking about, Adam. They can be a check that you didn't realize you're going to have to cash because you've gone in and wrote so much variance that your support department can't handle it. You've got to take that consideration. We talked about the fact that you now need to really start planning that, right? Throw it all up on the board and start working our way through it to kind of have a better understanding of what you might be writing the check that you're going to have to cash. But the last part I think I want to just touch on and get y'all's perspective on is the attitude of understanding who that implementer is and how ODVs relate to them. Here's what I mean by that. So we talked about the customization component, right? So the implementer that is going to be kind of the custom home builders. You're going to have a lot more flexibility in what they do, but it's also probably going to be they're not going to be involved in doing it. You'll be involved in doing it, not the implementer. It's different for a managed service provider. A managed service provider is absolutely going to be involved in doing it, and they're going to be held accountable to it, and it'll be probably in their shared responsibility matrix. ODVs have a massive impact on how they're going to support you. So last, I just kind of want to throw that out to you guys. How do you see ODVs becoming a positive or negative for an MSP as they scale to support a client? Because you need to make sure if you're picking someone, are they going to step in this space and really scale and that's what they're going to do? Or are they just going to help you out and you love them, they love you, and you're okay with them being one of the few other people that are doing CMC? And you better know the answer to that question. But that's a whole other podcast. So how do you see ODVs being a challenge for the MSPs as they scale to support, Kaylee?
So here, my first initial thought is a lot of times when I'm in calls with potential clients that are looking to see how, how we work and how we operate as an MSP and helping them through CMMC. I'm very honest with them up front with saying if they've already done some stuff, which some stuff, there's a lot of definition about some stuff. Okay.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah. And so, classic Adam, it depends on what that stuff is. But let's say that they've worked on their system security plan, and with that has come a few different policies and procedures along with it. I always prepare for them to understand when coming on board with us, they will have to basically start over. And they kind of go, "What? How could we do that?" And then I kind of flip it, flip the coin on the other side and say, "Well, how do you expect our team to come in and just magically know exactly how to take over your environment exactly where it is?" Like, we have to do this all the time, and we had to train our engineers and technicians and people that are doing this beforehand so that we're not learning on your dime. So if we had to teach them beforehand, we had to teach them something. So it's most likely not going to be exactly, unless we're psychic, which we're not, exactly what you made already. So we can just pick up where we left off, And
Right.
so my question a lot of the times is, why does that seem concerning a lot of the times to somebody when I say we're going to have to start over again, rather than that's reassuring that they have a process that they go through? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel
Yeah.
like
I
it
think it's
should
a
start.
fear.
I feel
It's
like
the
it starts. Yeah, it's fear. Yeah, I
It's
get
the
what you.
fear that it took us this long to get here, and now you're telling us to
You're
hit
like, I'm
hit
going to
the
start over, and
but
that
they don't realize
sucks.
that, but I already have all the
But look
processes
at
and
this. Look.
policies already. We're just gonna help you get there faster.
Yeah.
Am I allowed
Yeah.
to throw out a hot take?
Yeah.
No. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
My hot take, if your policies, SSPs, and all that were so great, why are we having this conversation?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you are talking to me, which means it's probably not a very good sign about where your documentation is right
Right,
now.
and to be fair on that one, what I just want to clarify on that one, because Kaylee, I think you hit the nail right on the head there. CMMC is quite the journey. There's a lot of nuance to it. You need to find the professionals to deal with it. But to the key point there, my teams need trained on something. I'm not training them on 12 different clients, 12 different procedures. Our policy package that we send over, the SSP alone is about 200 pages that
Mhm.
summarize everything else we do. If I were to give a rough number, I'd say we're somewhere between 500 and 1,000 pages of documentation, baselines, everything. I need professionals from my project team that implements, from my service team that supports it, and my compliance team that maintain it, to know what that is, to speak to it during an assessment and maintain that posture moving forward.
Right.
Mhm.
If that documentation package is different across 3 different clients, that's already a problem. If it's 20 different clients, that's a
Yeah.
crisis.
Yeah.
It's just not feasible, it's not sustainable, nor supportable or scalable.
Mhm.
Right.
The reason why I pride myself, and Bobby, you've talked so many times with an assessment, how like an assessor will be like, well, how do you do this? And I just start going bam, 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 hitting all the objectives. It's because I've lived and breathed in this and,
Right.
all that fun stuff that comes with it.
Right.
If we're talking client customizations and where they're just allowed to completely rewrite, policies that my team has to follow, now we're increasing error rates because it's not the process,
It's
it's not
so
the
true.
procedure.
Great
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. That's so good. You guys covered that so well. That variableness can really kill you, and you
Yeah.
have to be, as a mature MSP, very careful in your approach to that, like a wild animal. You got to be
Yeah.
like, okay, let me make sure, because it can really get you. And what it really comes down to, I think, is the MSPs that typically get this and understand it is those that have sat in multiple assessments. In the reality of sitting in the assessment, and you start looking around and seeing how it's going, you're like, we have no chance of doing this totally custom. Like, there's no chance. The depth the assessors are wanting me to go is like, you would have to interview a new person every time
Mhm.
and have an intimate knowledge of them, and then start it afresh with a new person and get down to that same, it's almost like, I don't know if you ever remember The Proposal with
The
Ryan
proposal.
Reynolds
Yes.
and
And
Sandra Bullock, where they
Sandra
have to do
Bullock.
the interview questions and they have to line up, or they're going to
Yep.
get, she's going to get kicked back to Canada or whatever.
Yes.
And it's kind of like that, but like you're getting married every time and it's a different person.
Mhm.
Huh?
And you have to get to that level, and if you do that, it's just,
Yeah.
there's no way you're gonna get that
Yes,
consistently.
and let's just
You're
bring up
doomed.
just a beautiful word that people love to talk about with me, which is time. So we talked about time. How can you expect a service provider to come in and learn your environment and then pick up where they left off and then start implementing it from there and be able to do that efficiently? Because
Right.
not only are you wanting it to go from where you left off, but also do it super fast. How how in the
Yeah.
world do you do that? It's not reasonable.
Yeah. It's not.
Because then you have to, like how you're saying, you have to have this intimate relationship then with the new SSP that you've just seen for the first time and then take over where it left off. It's very unrealistic to assume that somebody can do that within 2 months.
Yeah,
You
I
say
think
that? I literally was in a peer group meeting talking with a company, lead assessor, super smart person I deeply, deeply respect. They were like, "We could do this." They went in and they were like, after they finished getting through the hell, they're like,
Never,
"We will never do this again." They
never
were like,
mind.
they
Yeah.
got, sometimes you can kind of sashay in, feel you're kind of cocky, you think I got this. And
Yeah.
then, reality sets in and you're like, oh Lord, what did we just get ourselves into?
Yeah.
And yeah, it
right.
was very interesting.
Yeah, I think the kind of adage kind of goes is, you got three options when looking down the barrel of things. You can have it, good, you can have it fast, or you can have it cheap. Pick two.
Yeah. Did you
Well,
get that from Bobby? I think you said that before.
I don't know. I didn't get it. You can get it from me, but it's a common one. But thank you guys so much man. Y'all really were so concise on this one. I really appreciate y'all drilling in. This was a really great topic, and I think also something that isn't talked about enough with MSPs. And if you're considering picking an MSP, the topics that we just talked about are very important for you to understand.
Hmm.
Critical in your selection process. A lot of times people don't think about that, and it can be very consequential in a positive or negative way. So you really, really, really want to pay attention to those things.
Yeah.
So try to make sure, forward this to someone that you think you might have. If you haven't rated our episode on whatever platform you might be listening on, please give us 5 stars or however many stars means awesome.
If it's less than 5, don't rate it. Never mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Just
No, I'm
pretend,
just kidding.
ignore what I just said. But yeah, we definitely want to try to get the word out because we're trying to raise the tide for everybody
Mhm.
in their CMMC journey. So we're really, really trying to get the word out through this. Check out our events page. We're going to be hitting some conferences, seeing some different things. If you want to see, our perspective on things, pull us aside, ask us questions. We love talking with anyone about something we're super passionate about, which is obviously CMMC. And we also have free shirts with us pretty much everywhere we go.
Yeah.
We make them custom. We don't charge. All you have to do is just say, hey, can I have a shirt? And then we'll give you a sampling of shirts.
Mhm.
So we always love that because it just gives us another opportunity to connect with people, which we very much enjoy. So thank you again for joining us on this episode. And as always, keep on climbing. Bye for now.
Bye, guys.